Hey everyone, so today I'm bringing you some tips and tricks to hopefully increase your fun per hour while playing Path of Exile, so let's dive right into this. So something I just found out about is you can control right click to move entire stacks of items. So if you just sold something at the currency exchange, you no longer need to just move one stack at a time. You can just control, right click, and you're done. Now, for the next tip, I'm sure most players are already doing this, but any uniques you come across while mapping, make sure you are disenchanting them, because each unique is worth one chance shard. And orbs of chance are worth 10 exalts, maybe a little bit more. So each unique is effectively one exalted orb if you are disenchanting them. So next we have a tip for the Trial of the Sekhimas. And if you didn't already know, you can buy and sell your Baryas. So for example, we have the Test of Time Barya, which you could purchase to skip the first 3 zones. You would purchase these if you are looking to carry other players, because usually ascendancies go for 1 divine each. So if you have a build that is strong enough to delete the boss while carrying other players, you could buy these for 1 divine each, rush through the zone, get to the boss, and then sell ascendancies to 5 other players, and potentially make many divines per hour doing this. Or you could just go through the first 3 zones yourself, and when you get to the treasure room after defeating the scorpion boss on the 3rd floor, you can leave the trial and take your Test of Time Barya out of the relic altar and sell it. Next is a tip if you're running unique equipment in your build. So something you could do is on cheaper uniques. For example, I have Wake of Destruction. These are 1 exalt, and I have a really good corruption for 25% lightning resist. That is doing so much more than a second rune socket would be. I also have an older unique, Call of the Brotherhood, which has an enchant for 29% increased damage. So if you're running uniques in your build and you can afford spending a little bit more, make sure you're getting those added stats. Next we have the map device, and if you're like me, whenever you want to use the Realm Gate, you're probably just, looking for it, but you can open a Bookmarks tab over here and switch between player, home, the monolith, and you can right-click map nodes and set bookmarks to those juicy nodes that you might want to save for a later date when you have better maps. So next, this is an absolutely gargantuan tip. Make sure your resistances are maxed or close to it. Preferably you want to aim for 85% plus, just in case you are hit with elemental weakness in your maps. So for example, if an enemy was to hit you with a fireball that does 5,000 damage, if you are going into mapping with 0% fire resist, you're getting hit for 5,000 damage and you're probably dying in 1 hit. However, if you have 75% fire resist, that 5,000 damage hit now hits you for 1,250 damage, and now you've only lost half your HP or energy shield and you survived. Resistances and defensive layering are so important to keep you alive, because that is going to increase your fun per hour, because losing maps and dying, that is no fun. And what I mean by defensive layering is you want as many defensive layers as possible. So right now I have life, I have energy shield, so that is about 3,000 effective HP. And on top of that, I have a 51% chance to dodge any hit, and that's without tailwind stacks. And then on top of that, any hit that gets through, I have a chance to deflect that to reduce the damage. So you just want to make sure that you have as many defensive layers as possible, so you are not going into maps and just dying in 1 hit. So next we have a tip for purchasing items in bulk. So if you've seen some of my previous videos, you saw that I've been doing a lot of gambling, a lot of belt gambling. Now you always have to be mindful of scams. So I'm gonna go to this random hideout, and what you could do so that you don't accidentally get scammed is in this search bar, you can type in Exalt. And what that will do is it will hide any item not listed for Exalts. So this could potentially save you from accidentally purchasing an item listed for a divine. So for example, if I wanted to buy these inscribed ultimatums, you can see they're all listed for 1 Vol Orb. So if I was buying these in bulk, someone could be trying to scam. Like, it could be 1 Vol Orb, 1 Vol Orb, and then 1 Divine Orb. And if you're just randomly buying them, that could get you. So this is not perfect. It will still show items listed for greater exalts, for example, and perfect exalts. So you still have to be kind of mindful of what you're purchasing. But again, this is just one added layer that can maybe save you from accidentally purchasing something for many times more than what it's worth. Next, we have something that is so useful. It is life and mana on kill. You can get % life and mana on kill from passive nodes. So for example, we have recover 2% maximum mana on kill over here. We have recover maximum life on kill over here. You can also get these stats on jewels. You can get life and mana on kill on your gear. So if you're running a physical base damage build, you can also get physical attack damage leeched as life and mana. You can get these stats on rings, on gloves, and on melee weapons. And leech is super good because it works against bosses too. Because life and mana on kill, that's not going to trigger during a boss fight unless they're summoning adds. So leech, if you're running a physical base damage build, absolutely massive. So next, if someone messages you, you don't have to press enter, right click on their name, and hit whisper. If you press Ctrl Alt Enter, it will automatically whisper the last person who whispered you. In addition to that, Ctrl Enter will DM the last person you whispered. Only useful if you're talking to multiple people. So next are some of the old tips that I've covered previously in previous videos, but in those videos, those were from 0.1, so there's a lot of irrelevant information. So I just want to go over all the useful tips again, so you don't have to watch, a half hour worth of videos for a handful of tips. So first up, we have chat commands. So for example, we can type in /kills, and you can see how many monsters you've slain. You can type /deaths to see how many times you've died. Now the full list of commands, I'll just pull it up for you real quick so you can see like how long you've been playing, how old your character is, etc. So you can screenshot this if you want, pause the video, we'll go down a little bit, and here are the rest of the commands. Next, you want to be a little wary of people selling items in public trade chats. For example, we have this guy selling 30 white heavy belts for 8 divines. That's 40 exalts per white belt. And then we see that white heavy belts are 15 exalts. These are probably getting gobbled up, but we can scroll down. Maybe 25 exalts listed a couple minutes ago, so maybe 15, 20 exalts. So that person is trying to sell belts for twice or even 3 times what they paid for them. So just be mindful of deals that you see in public trade chats. Next, at the currency exchange, you can use currency to select what you have and what you want. You can also Ctrl-click to instantly put it in what you have. Next, you can Ctrl-click NPCs to perform various actions. For example, if you Ctrl-click Doriani, he will identify your items. Now, that's useful for when you come out of a map, you leave the map, Ctrl-click Doriani, and then you can Alt-click Zolan, and that will bring up the buy or sell window. Or you can Ctrl-click him, and that'll bring up the disenchant window.
Go then.
So the next absolutely massive tip is get all of your campaign upgrades. So if you open up your passive tree, So I have 24 weapon set points. That is 24 additional skill points I obtained from the campaign. So make sure you have all of your skill points, make sure you have all of your resistances, and all of your upgrades. So what I'll do is I will put a link in the description to Mobalytics so that you can double check to make sure you have all of your campaign upgrades. Alternatively, you can just check your map, and any node that has a little plus sign next to it, that is a permanent upgrade. So you can just go through every single area, make sure you've done every single node, and obtained every single upgrade. So the next tip is to make sure you've been upgrading your skill gems. So for example, my Twister is level 19. Just make sure you're not working with skill gems that are 5, 6, or 7 levels below what you could be, so long as you can still afford the mana cost and the attribute requirements. Now for the next tip, we will look at the skill tree. Now, if you are following a build guide, you probably don't need to worry too much about pathing. However, if you cooked something up yourself, go to your passive tree and spend a half hour looking at it and just looking at paths to see if everything is optimal. See if you can get back any skill points. So for example, like let's say something wasn't optimal. What if I was using these 3 nodes and I wasn't using this one? So you start, you come down here, you path up here, okay, you path down here, and then later in your build, you path over here to get some other nodes. But this just slips under the radar. So you just use this pathing thinking it's fine. But if you take a close look at it, it's like, wait a minute, I can spend 1 skill point, I can connect this entire area to my main path while also getting back 3 skill points. So the next tip is for breach catalysts. Now, if you aren't already, you can use these to increase the bonuses on your rings and your amulet. So for example, on this ring I have quality, fire modifiers plus 25%, so that is increasing the fire resistance and it is increasing the elemental resistances. So if you have really good rings and a really good amulet that you don't plan on upgrading anytime soon, make sure you are upgrading them with catalysts. In addition to that, on your amulet, you can instill any notable passive from the passive tree using delirium emotions. So for example, we have distilled ire over here. We'll just take 3 of these out, and we can right click on these, control click them into the window, and on your amulet, we can, for example, instill insulated threads using 3 distilled ire. Now, if we hold Alt and hover over any passive node, you can see each node has a combination of distilled emotions you can use to instill it. So if you have a very good amulet you don't plan on upgrading, you can put a very expensive passive on it, or if you have a cheaper amulet that you're probably going to upgrade soon, you can still get some super cheap emotions and instill a really good passive on it for only a couple of exalts. So if we look at distilled emotions, we can distill maps. So we have, with 3 distilled ire, we have players are 21% delirious, and delirious just increases the difficulty. It gives monsters more modifiers. The more modifiers an enemy has, the higher chance it has of dropping better stuff. And then we can also use, for example, like liquid guilt. That's going to give 24% increased pack size. So distilling waystone's super valuable. You can really squeeze out a lot more currency, a lot more enemies, a lot more experience. And these are fairly cheap. So it would cost, 2.5 exalts to get 24% more enemies on your maps. So this is something you could, and if you can handle it, should be doing. So next we have some pretty useful omens. We have Omen of Amelioration and Omen of Resurgence. So if you're a lower level, always have an Omen of Resurgence in your inventory, and when you get to 35% HP, you will fully recover life, mana, and energy shield. You can use this once per map. If you're a higher level, like 90 plus, you might want to consider using the Omens of Amelioration, which will save you 7.5% XP when you die. So instead of losing 10%, you lose 2.5%. Now you can only use one omen per map. So if you're at a higher level, you probably don't want to use Omens of Resurgence, because if this pops and then you die, you're losing a full 10% XP. And finally, this is something that I think everyone knows about by now, but if you're not already, go to FilterBlade, link in the description, and get a loot filter. Hide all the garbage so you don't waste time picking up things that are worth 1/50th of an Exalted Orb, and you will save so much time. You'll get through an extra map and maybe 2 per hour, and you won't miss any valuable drops, anything that's dropping off screen, etc. Alright, so that is all of the new tips that I've just recently found out about, plus a bunch of tips from my previous videos, so you don't need to go and watch those. So it just saved you a whole bunch of time. I hope you learned something, and I do want to say, if there is anything that I missed, if there are any tips that you think that everyone should know, so leave it in the description, and I will create a pinned comment with a whole bunch of tips and tricks that you all think I should have included in this video. And with that being said, as always everyone, take care. Orbs of Chance and Orbs of Chance items in bulk. So if you've seen some of my, kind of the same thing, just remember Ctrl Alt. So kind of the same thing,